So, what does courageous leadership mean to you, Morten?
I'd like to highlight two things that I think is important for courageous leadership. And one is to be a courageous leader is to have in part the discipline to say no. Now that might sound a little strange, but leadership is about setting a clear direction. That means that there are other directions you are not doing. And being able to differentiate between what the direction should be for the organization you lead and what it should not be. And that means saying no to opportunities. And that to me is especially important in today's environment that is so full of change and uncertainty. Because with a change and uncertainty in the environment around you, there are more opportunities, there are more things going on. So playing it safe means that you are chasing a little bit of all these opportunities. But that's not setting a direction, that's not saying no. And that requires courage. So I believe that the more change you see around you, the more courage you need in order to set a clear direction and say no to other opportunities. So I think that's the first part. I do think there's a second part related, and that is to have the courage to tell yourself and others that you don't have all the answer as a leader. You're not necessarily the smartest person in the room. You're not the expert. You're not the only person. That means you have to lead with humility. And that means being open to input from others, learning from others, and having a decision-making process where you include others' points of view, including people who will disagree with you.
Yeah.
That is such a key. And it also means that if you don't have all the answers, you're going to make mistakes, and being open to tolerate those mistakes. So I think the combination of these two, being able to say no, and the ability to involve others in the process of going for a certain direction, to me, that requires a lot of courage, and I think it's very difficult today because of all the changes.
Definitely. Not an easy task for anyone. Why is courageous leadership so important today, right now?
I think it's for what I said, because we live in this world of so much change. That means that there's a lot of incomplete information, there's a lot of uncertainty. It requires judgment, and it requires courage to make the decision needed to be made. And so in that kind of environment, you need to have a leader who can stand in the wind and not just blowing with the wind whatever direction the market tells you this month, next month, and so on. That's why I think it is so important.
Is there any advice you could give for leaders in order to become more courageous?
Well, there are certain things you can start practicing. You could say, okay, what did I say no to last month? How many no's have I said? Am I saying too many yes? Do I have a clear direction? I think these are certain things you can start practicing. Because saying no to something, and something you really want to do, and the people around you really want to do, well, that requires courage. And so that's like one little practice just to get it started.
Is it a bigger problem for leaders to say too many yeses or too many no's? I mean, sometimes you are also defensive for ideas from outside and feedback, and then you say no. Which one is the bigger problem from your point of view?
I think it is to say no. Because I think there are too many yeses, because you want to hedge your bets. But that's not courage. That's like saying, I think I'm just going to play a lot of different bets because I don't want to take a decision to make a bigger bet. And that requires saying no. But of course you're right, if you're just a no person, you create bureaucracy and no opportunities and no ideas allowed to flourish. So of course there is a balance between the two.
Do less than obsess.
Yes, exactly. Right. There we go.
Many businesses have gone through a lot of changes and are undergoing through changes. Of course, a recent pandemic, current ongoing war in Europe, and also the revolution in AI. If I may call it a revolution, I think it's pretty much a revolution. So, how can a leader prepare or equip his or her team, the organization, for these kinds of changes?
Well, if you start with the basic observation or argument that in a world of uncertainty that we live in now, it is very difficult to predict the future. You see, in fact, it's difficult to plan for the future. Running a 10-year Excel spreadsheet about where your numbers are going to be 10 years from now, you could do that 30 years ago. Today, you cannot. So what's an implication of that? I think one implication is that you need to experiment yourself toward the future. And what does that mean? It means you need to have a process of experimentation. I think most companies are pretty bad at that. At least that's what my research and other people's research show. It means as a leader, you need to be able to have encourage people to do pilots and new ideas and try them out in a very small scale. In our book, Great by Choice, that I co-wrote with Jim Collins, this is one of the insights that we found from studying companies that became great in a world full of uncertainty. They were very good at experimenting. And once you find the great gems, the things that work out in the marketplace, you then have to scale them. Right? I think that process is something that you can do in order to meet the future.
First bullets, then cannonballs.
Yes, there you go, from the Great by Choice book.
Yeah. I'm a passionate reader of your work, of course. You specialize also in collaboration, and now many organizations are struggling in creating collaboration, thriving collaboration, and a thriving culture in this new environment of remote work, hybrid work. You also have said that bad collaboration is worse than none at all.
Right.
So, what's your advice?
Yeah, I think we might be entering into a world of bad virtual collaboration, right? Bad remote work. And so there is a good way to do it and there's a bad way to do it. I think the bad way is that you have people working from home or remotely, and as a leader, you don't trust them because you can't see them. They're not in your office. That's a proximity bias, right? I think you work when I can see you work. Of course, that's not entirely true. So what do companies do? Some companies, they track a person's work. They track the computer usage. They track the keyboard, and so on. That's terrible. That basically sends the message, I don't trust you. So I'm going to put in tracking software in your computer to make sure you work remotely. What you have to do instead as a leader is for the people who are working remotely to set very clear output deliverables. You're not managing by input, hours worked, you're managing by output. What are you going to do? And when you're remotely, you have flexible hours perhaps. I don't care when you work and so on, but this is the deliverable that I want from you. And that's a change in mindset from a lot of people. And we need to get away from this idea that you have to be in an office to think that you work. And that's a mindset change.
Thank you, Morten.
Well, looking forward to September.
Yes.